Hello, and thank you for joining me today, where we are going to learn some culture shocks about England. Ooh. As coming from an American perspective, I'm fascinated. Let's see.
Hey guys, I'm Eric.
And I'm Grace. We're the Wandering Ravens.
And today we are going to tell you 10 things that were culture shock for us when we arrived here in England.
Excellent.
Are in London.
We'd always heard that London was multicultural, but just the extent of foreigners that were there was really shocking to us, and not in a bad way.
It was a really cool bridge, I just gotta say.
It was just surprising because we were coming to England, we're like, oh, there's probably gonna be a lot of English people and we'll be hearing lots of English. But when we were in public, about 90% of the languages we were hearing around us were foreign languages and
90%?
not English.
Pretty much everywhere was represented in London, so that was really cool. And to just hear all of the different languages.
That's mind-blowing. I had no idea.
Because we feel like, Seattle's pretty multicultural as well, but not to the extent of London.
No way.
Just all of the languages and everyone speaking different languages in like the restaurants. We'd be sitting at our table and each table was speaking a different language.
This happened every time we went on
pretty
date,
much every
basically.
time. There'd be like the table of Koreans. We could always hear them because
Korea!
we understand a tiny bit of Korean, so we were like,
We lived in Korea for 2 years, for those
so
of you
we're
who
like,
don't know.
the Koreans, French people.
How cool is that? Because it's more like centrally located as far as having a lot of different countries within a near traveling distance of England. So, wow, to think London is just mostly not English people.
Eastern European people, just everywhere. Number two,
the subways are really small. It was actually shocking because our experience with subways is in Korea and Japan, and these subways are very wide. There's lots of standing room. They're also very tall, but the tube, as it's called in London, actually looks kind of like a tube. Yeah, it makes sense.
It's like not tall, or at least the ones that we rode on were not tall, like all the way across on the ceiling, but it's kind of like
a box
curved or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like
That's kind of cool. So it's probably more nimble. Like it can probably go more places.
curved. Maybe not all of them are that way, but the ones that we rode on were that way. So that was interesting.
You know what I mean? Like it's easier to build it throughout the city.
It was just surprising and shocking how small the tube was, at least the tubes that we rode.
Speaking of tubes, that brings us to number 3. I love how English people wait patiently for people who are on the tube to get off before getting on the tube themselves. That is something
Human decency. Fascinating.
After living in Korea for a couple years, you'll know that is not the case. As soon as the subway doors open and the train stops, everyone in Korea is just like pushing everybody else and getting on the subway as fast as they can.
I think it's probably somewhere in the middle here in America.
So it was nice to go to a place where everyone just stands aside and waits for those people who are on the train to get off, which is what should happen.
This is actually so shocking that the very first time we rode the tube, when the doors opened and everyone was waiting for people to get off, Grace turned to me and made that observation. She's like, oh my gosh, they're waiting for people to get off. What is this?
Madness.
Number 4, this is just a really quick one, but light switches here are different than they are in the States, and whereas in the States and Korea and other countries, you flip on to turn the light switch
You
on.
flip up,
Flip up to turn it on, and flip down to turn it off. Here,
it's the opposite.
Yeah, from what we've seen, you flip up to turn.
No way, dude. There's no freaking way. How does that make any sense? I'm trying to think. Even if I grew up with that, I think the whole time I was growing up, I'd be like, this feels wrong. You flip it up to turn it off. That's crazy.
To turn it off and flip down to turn it on.
Number 5. The other thing that we found surprising when we arrived in England was that power outlets have to be switched on to use them. So it has like a little switch next to it and you have to turn it on in order to use electronic appliances.
But do you guys like turn them off all the time? Or are you just leaving them on all the time? I assume you just leave it on.
So many times we've tried to boil like hot water for tea or coffee.
Or charge my phone.
And you forget to switch the power outlet on and it doesn't charge or the water doesn't boil and you're like, I kind of like that though because as I heard someone say the other day, it prevents like children from sticking things into the sockets and getting electrocuted. So I like that idea.
Unless the kid turns it on. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
And then also, like in America, when we go on vacation or something like that, you have to run around the house and unplug everything so it doesn't.
It's exhausting.
So it's not a fire hazard.
Or even like every night, you try to like unplug.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I don't do that. I'm gonna be straight up honest. I know only like my dad does that because he's like, you left that plugged in? That'll cost me 13 cents this year. But most people, the vast majority of people, don't unplug anything. I'm trying to think. Yeah. Leave it plugged in.
Here, you just turn the outlets off. So that's actually kind of cool. It was shocking, but it's kind of cool. And
But if you could just turn it off, I might do that to save like that little bit of power. Assuming it does save a little bit of power, turn it off. That'd be a lot easier.
Probably try to do that on our own house one day.
Yeah, I like that.
Number 6, something else that has been a little shocking for us is that tipping here is a bit different than back in the States. Whereas in the States, when you go to a restaurant, any receipt that you get is going to have a tip line where you write the tip. Here at restaurants, they don't have that. And most cafes don't even have a tip jar. And so it's been really confusing for us to figure out what we do for tipping.
I've heard also that tipping is super minimal here. Like,
So you pretty much just tip in cash?
if at all, it's like just really minimal. So that's definitely different than America.
Look at that food. Wow, for a pub, that looks incredible.
Whereas a server, you're like 20% or you're a bad
Yummy.
table sort of.
Yeah. Question though, for the English folk in the audience, when I'm at a restaurant and they give me a receipt that doesn't have a tip line or anything on it, what am I supposed to do? Do I tip? Or is
Do you
that
just
just
leave
like
it
a
on the
no
table?
tip? Yeah, do you leave it on the table? Or is that just like we all agree that there's no tipping going on in this situation? Please let me know.
I'd probably hand the server. I guess that's what I would do. Is that what you do? Hand them the tip? No?
Down in the comments so I don't make any social faux pas.
Number 7.
Yeah, maybe that's a faux pas. Because they might be like, oh, you think you're like special giving me a tip? Like, I should be so grateful.
Real quick, I was just going to mention that in grocery stores here in England,
More
they generally
cheese.
have a much larger selection of cheese than they do back home in the States, which I'm not going to complain about. I love that.
Amazing.
Everybody loves cheese. Why don't we have more cheese?
I think it's just a lot more in the culture here, I guess, than it is back
What? You got a free sample of cheese?
home. Whereas back home, you usually only have
That was sticky.
like a couple different kinds of cheese to choose from, and not like
Cheddar, Gouda,
not like mozzarella or Parmesan.
mozzarella. Yeah.
Not like specialty cheeses. Here you'll have like many different types, and there'll be different ages as well.
Number 8. This is one you hear a lot, probably, but we don't know which direction to look when we cross the road. And this is for a couple of reasons. One, people here drive on the left side of the road, and so
I would just look both to be sure.
that's confusing. But 2, there are also a ton of one-way streets here, both in London and in the villages that we've been in and towns. Lots of one-way streets that aren't obvious one-way streets. And so when we cross, it is so confusing to know
Which way to look?
And so
It's quite dangerous, actually.
yeah.
You know, like, I am in fear of being struck by an automobile. That sounded ridiculous.
That was
but,
it. Yeah. We're working on our English accent.
That wasn't an English accent. That was just
wasn't?
me.
Sounding like an English person.
In London, though, there is a nice, I think it's so polite and courteous how they put on the ground, like, look this way.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Before crossing the street, there's like,
No way. I actually saw a picture of this last week, and I thought this was photoshopped. Like a joke. Like, look left, you stupid Americans. That's actually real? That is pretty convenient. That would save my drunk butt.
paint on the sidewalk that says look left or look right or look both ways. And so
Yeah.
Cool.
I thought that was kind of cool. I was like, oh,
That was really good.
these English folk have our back.
They know
Maybe.
we're stupid.
Number 9. This is more of a question, but it was also a very big culture shock. Why are there 2 separate spigots for hot and cold water? This, like, somebody please explain. I don't understand this. Like, do you want to wash your hands in freezing cold water and not kill any of the germs? I don't know if that's correct, but whatever, that's what I think.
What the heck?
Or do you want to scald yourself so that you...
What the heck? How do you get warm water?
You can't even feel, and then you have to be fed by your husband for the next few days. Like,
Yeah.
choose.
There's no way this is what you guys do to wash your hands.
It is very confusing, and this is not just something we've seen in homes, but we've seen it in museums, in churches, in cafes, and
It's
restaurants.
like everywhere in the restroom.
Yeah.
It's two separate.
Two separate spigots, and you get scalding hot water, or you get freezing
Ice.
cold water.
I'm trying to think of where this would be even useful. Why would this ever be useful? Because here in America, I mean, if you don't know, we have one spigot with two knobs, one hot, one cold. So you adjust the spigots to how hot or cold you want it. I mean, I guess here you have to wait a moment for the hot water to get to you, but I assume that's the same way with your spigot because the water in the pipe isn't going to be hot.
So, like, what I was doing, I know this is
You just stand up and
ridiculous,
go and
but yeah,
throw
I was
them
just
together.
like throwing them together and like. Somebody explain, because somebody's got an explanation for why
there's a
this is
reason.
better, I'm sure.
Explain it to us.
It's not.
Number 10, it was shocking to us how much people jaywalk here. We had been warned by friends that, hey, just so you know, in London, it's okay to jaywalk. But when we came here, it was just surprising to see how frequently everyone jaywalks. Literally everyone jaywalks.
I heard about that, how roads are like more, I don't know, the city is more walking friendly. Like you're free to just walk. As a pedestrian, you are the priority. That's what it seems to be. And cars kind of have to look out for you. Whereas in America, going in the road is like, you don't do that unless you are sure there's no cars, you know.
All the
the
time.
time.
Yeah, it's constant jaywalking. And we're coming from Seattle, which is, I think, in the United States, we are famous for being a city that no one jaywalks in. So it was really shocking to come to England and no one, it's just like
Constant jaywalking.
Look, run. Look, run.
Which makes you feel extremely stressed out as foreigners because we don't know which way to look. So we're like, oh, we can't just wait for this light, which is gonna last forever. We should jaywalk, but then we don't know which direction the cars are coming from. So if we jaywalk, we might die. So it's kind of like.
And then you know who the foreigners are because they're the ones
They're
that
the
are
dead
waiting
ones.
for the light.
Oh.
Wow.
Wow.
They're the ones splattered on the road. Aha, must be a tourist.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video.
I did enjoy that. That was awesome. Go check out their channel, Wandering Ravens. Yes. And thank you for watching. I hope you are having a fantastic day. I hope to see you again tomorrow. I hope to see you again tomorrow. Subscribe if you want to. Either way, goodbye.